Hi everyone, and welcome back to Mission 1820 and this week's episode of Have You Ever Wondered? If you're just joining us, we're in a series called Books of the Bible, where we've been giving introductions into each book of the Bible in just 5 minutes or less. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to this week's book. This week we're in the book of Jonah. This is the 32nd book of the Bible, and it's also the 5th of the minor prophets that we've been covering in the Old Testament. Now, Jonah is a short book. It's only 4 chapters, but the book emphasizes God's love for all people. That includes the pagans, the Gentiles, as well as his own chosen people, the Israelites. Now, the book is named for its central figure, the prophet Jonah. However, for the author, the traditional view is that Jonah did write the book, which would place the writing somewhere around 760 BC. Now, since Jonah is the same Jonah who prophesied during the reign of Jeroboam II of Israel from 793 to 753, and you can read about this in 2 Kings chapter 14, verse 25. Now, as I mentioned, the book of Jonah only has 4 chapters, but we can divide them into 2 sections. Now, the first is called the First Commission of Jonah. This is in chapters 1 and 2. The second section is called the Second Commission of Jonah, and this is found in chapters 3 and 4. Now, the book of Jonah begins with God's call to Jonah to preach to the great city of Nineveh, which is the capital of the Assyrian Empire. What we need to understand, though, is that Nineveh was by far the worst of the offenders. They were an evil empire, and they were Israel's dreaded enemy. Now, the Assyrians flaunted their power before God and the world through their numerous acts of heartless cruelty. This caught the attention of God, which in their case was not necessarily a good thing. However, God's call to Jonah clearly shows that he had not given up on Assyria just yet. Now, the book of Jonah tells the story of this prophet's flight and how God stopped him and then turned him around in order to fulfill his plan. You see, God gave Jonah a command to go to Nineveh and to preach a message of repentance to the 120,000 people that were living in the city, to warn the nation of their approaching doom unless they turned to God. But Jonah decided to disobey God's command, so he hops a ship to Tarshish, which is over 2,500 miles in the opposite direction in the country of Spain. This was not a good move by Jonah because he'll eventually be swallowed by a great fish that was prepared by God. But he's going to quickly come to his senses and he's going to head back to Nineveh to preach the message. However, the reluctant prophet Jonah, well, he certainly wasn't prepared for the results of his message because the entire city repented. This caused Jonah to get angry at God for not punishing Nineveh. Now, as for that great fish that swallowed Jonah in chapter 1, verse 17, the point of this part of the story is not about the fish itself or even what kind of fish it even was. The point is that God worked a miracle in order to preserve the life of Jonah so that he could get to Nineveh and carry out his command. Now, there are some Bible readers who insist on interpreting this book as an allegory or even a parable. But the problem by doing this is they ignore Jesus' own literal interpretation of Jonah, which is found in Matthew chapter 1, verse 40, where Jesus speaks of his own death and resurrection. So, why do we need to read this book? Why is it important? Well, one of the great truths emphasized by this book is that God can use people who do not want to be used by him. However, when God does want to use us, he's going to use us. So as you read Jonah, see the full picture of God's love and compassion, and then realize that no one is beyond redemption. So with that, I hope that this introduction is going to help get you started in the book of Jonah. So God bless, and thanks for watching.